First of all, thank you so much for granting me the interview. I really sincerely appreciate your time and thoroughness and everything and walking through this. Let's talk about Mike Haddon, if you will. He was before your time, and I had grammar requests with Mike and whatnot for, I'd say, about 2 years, maybe 2 years,
okay.
When I came to KUTV. You had me start doing my grammar requests differently than I had been instructed to do when Mike was here with Allison. And so I started putting the requests into the grammar portal on the board's website.
Yes.
And you walked me through and showed me that last year that some of my emails with the return of the audio requests, I couldn't see his email address on there, what appears to be his email address. It is the same as his email address. But now you showed me that it's there. It had the perception that his email was still active, which it was because I tested it. It did not give an automated notification that he retired from state employment on January 1st, 2023. And then it appears that the board is conducting grammar requests using his email address. Can you explain what happened here?
Sure. So Mike Haddon, as you say, was my predecessor at the Board of Pardons and Parole. And he had some lovely skill sets that I don't share, which means that he programmed our website and he set up a YouTube channel. He did a whole bunch of tech-related things that we've been, were gifted to us and, improved public access to information. However, when Mike retired at the beginning of 2023, he left state employment. And what I discovered, I didn't show up on the scene until May of that year. But all of those things were associated with his email account. So the board has had to work to sort of decouple the email from the products that he so expertly created. What we have known also is that we have a plan to revamp our website. So when I came on board, I was told that we were on schedule to work with the Division of Technology Services to revamp the website that Mike created. But the way the process for technology works at the state is, quite frankly, you have to wait your turn. There's a special DTS group that does website revamps, and we are scheduled to do that revamp in April. Okay. So even though we tried a few times internally to decouple that website from the form and his email address, we were unable to do that locally. We ended up having to have DTS programmers, expert programmers, go through and rewrite some of the code supporting it to make that decoupling happen. The important thing to know is the way that was linked together was not actually related to the email address account, but just as a placeholder for the form to create a response. So the response that you received was not coming from Mike Haddon or Mike Haddon's email account. It was coming from the website form that uses that address, that old email address, as a placeholder, much like if you were to call somebody who no longer has that state cell phone before they've changed that name over. Wouldn't actually be that former employee still had access to the phone, but that name might pop up on your screen if you had it registered that way.
So is it fair to say, though, it has a perception that the state is conducting business using his name? And did you know about it? You mentioned when you came on board that you were charged with changing things. Did you know that the state was still doing business using Mike Haddon's name? Because that is business. Those are grammar requests. There are fees for things.
So I knew that that website was, to me, what I was told, inextricably linked to him. Mm-hmm. So for me, the work was to try to advance on the Department of Technology Services list so that we could get that work redone. The concern of trying to get it taken down, decoupled, was that it would pull our entire website down and that we would lose access, not just to, the grammar requests and the audio requests that we get every day, but that it would bring the whole website down. And that, in my view, was a greater risk because I knew that email wasn't truly part of that account.
Okay. Should it have gone on this long, though? I mean, he retired on January 1st of 2023, and I know you didn't come on till May of 2023. But again, my question, does it give the appearance that the state is conducting business using Mike Haddon's name?
So I think what is very common for us is to keep email addresses of prior employees, certainly at that level, open past their employment because we have need to, for continuity's sake, and to provide customer service when we know that things have happened with a particular director or executive, and make that available. There are other portions of this story, and the reality is that account went into a suspended status where you would have gotten a bounce back email saying that that email is not to be found.
And I didn't three times, right?
I guess what I'm saying is that was true until, from the time he left, until November. And in November of this year, I needed access to his account because I needed access to the YouTube channel. So in November of this year, I was given access to the account for the purposes of being able to log in as him and address the YouTube channel.
Okay. So then you are confirming that the state, you yourself, namely, were given access and you have been conducting business using Mike Haddon's email.
No, I haven't been conducting business using Mike Haddon's email.
But you said you were given access to his email address.
Yes,
correct?
I was, for the purpose of going in
for the YouTube.
And making a change to the YouTube.
Okay, but that's still access, right? That's still access.
To not to his email, but to the account label.
To the account to fix the YouTube issue.
Right, which doesn't involve me getting into his email.
Not personally accessing his email, but the board has kept his email open and you were given access. So I believe what you're telling me is the state was still doing business using not his email, but his access, correct? You mentioned you were just given access.
So the question is, would a Board of Pardons and Parole want to have a YouTube site that it was unable to alter, or did it need to be able to go in and take it down? Mm-hmm. And I explored many other options to be able to pull that site down or make changes to that site without gaining access. And it was the only option given to me by the Division of Technology Services. And so I did utilize that. In that moment, it's true that the status of that account changed slightly so that the bounce back no longer occurred. But no one here had access to do business with that account.
Okay. And for the general public who files a GRAMA request using the portal, when they get their GRAMA request returned, it still had his email address on the portal, because you mentioned that he programmed it, he created it.
It's true. We were unable to extricate that, to decouple that, until we reached out to the Division of Technology Services programmers.
And you've known about this since you came on board, is that correct? Relatively after?
I mean, I knew that Mike Haddon had programmed our website when I first came on board. Yes, that's true. All of the ways the forms functioned, I have learned over time. I guess that's probably the fairest way to say that. No one briefed me on the intricacies of the technology like in my first week. This was not, in the board's estimation, this was not the #1 issue or concern facing the board, right? This was public safety is our #1 issue. Working with cases and making decisions is the #1 issue. Getting the website accurate was something that, because I had a date in the future when the website would be revised, we did make attempts in the interim to decouple that internally. We were unable to do that. It was one of many priorities. Should I have done it earlier? Wendy, if I had known that you would have made this issue of it, yes, perhaps I would have done it earlier. But the state isn't doing business with an email account for somebody that isn't here.
No.
It's a form and a label and a placeholder, and it was not immediately apparent to me that that was going out to the public.
Okay, fair enough. Does Mr. Haddon know about this?
I informed Mr. Haddon that you were going to be doing a story about his email address when you first contacted me about it, but he does not know that you're here today.
Okay, that's fair enough. I just wanted to read, thank you for explaining it. You responded to my questions that I had sent you in the email. Sorry, just want to find it really quick here.
While she's looking for that, let me ask you this. How long was Mr. Haddon an employee? Or how long was he in his role before you took over?
He must have come.
He came from the Utah Department of Corrections, I believe,
so when he came to the board around 2021, so maybe,
okay.
I think, like Wendy just said, 2 years that she worked with him.
It sounds like he had the ability to make some fairly significant changes over those 2 years in terms of the website, how it worked, how GRAMA functioned. Is that fair to say?
Yes, he programmed the website.
Hindsight now, knowing all these layers of the onion you've had to peel back, I think you know where I'm going. Would you do things differently in the future in terms of who has access, how they have access? Would there be a tiered approach where you have a password, Wendy has a password, I have a password? A lot of different people have access points in which there isn't a stumbling block like this.
The way this should have been done is that the board's general email account should, as it is now, should have been the way that those things were programmed with access that would have been easier to get into. When I came, it was a bit like a black box that I was trying to get into from multiple different sides. And given the fact that I don't have the kind of expertise technologically that Mike Haddon has, it has taken a little bit more effort on my behalf. I did the best that I could to address the problems as they came to me. And much like, we've done with every issue that you've brought to my attention, Wendy. So I can't say that I handled this any differently.
Okay, that's fair.
Would you or the board make policy changes in the future to ensure that a situation like this wouldn't happen again, where one person was the only one who had the keychain?
Well, let me put it this way. I think that the Division of Technology Services is taking the reins in giving agencies certain options and not others in how they conduct the technology portion of that piece. And I am very grateful and find very helpful the resources that are available to agencies by the Division of Technology Services that may not have been available to Mike in the past.
Is your belief that he did follow the policies and procedures that were in place when he created these systems?
It has never been represented to me that he broke any policies in what he did. I don't believe he thought a lot about what might happen after he left. And these are artifacts as a consequence of him having left.
I guess I would just ask a couple more things about this. Before we started the interview, I mentioned that it appears to have the perception that the state is conducting business using Mike Haddon's name. And you both understood where I was coming from, seemingly did. Haddon is named as a defendant in it's now a federal lawsuit. So with that appearance and what you're telling me right now, is that a concern? Would that concern you? I mean, it's concerning the law firm that filed the lawsuit. They want to know why his name's on everything now, why his email was still active. And I know you can't talk about that, but I believe that's a fair question. It has a perception like he was still doing business for the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole, and he's a defendant in a lawsuit.
Absolutely. I can see where you're coming from, but the reality of the matter is facts matter. Mm-hmm. His email account is not associated with the website. It's not associated with anything related to that email account. He's not doing business, we're not doing business using it. That email account, standalone, there's no activity. So I knew that the truth would come to light in that case, should that have been an issue. And this website revamp was on the table and ready to move forward. I thought it would move forward on January 1. It's moving forward on April 1. Be that as it may, right? That, given the totality of the circumstances, was less of a concern than meeting the public safety needs for the people of Utah.
Okay, and I will just read you what you sent to me, and then we'll move on. You wrote, and this is just an excerpt of it, these accounts issue an automatic response stating that the individual is no longer employed by the board and give general contact information. It looks like that stopped being the case for Mike Haddon's email in February, and that was after I tested it, right?
Right, and so what I would say is, what I've learned is that not that there was a vacation hold type automated email response before, but that the system itself was saying that person, like, there is no email address like that. That was what was happening before I requested access in November.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I think I tested it 3 times and it did not bounce back undeliverable. And then my last test, late last week, it had the message on there that he no longer works for the board. And you wrote that we have reestablished that automatic response, and thank you for alerting us to the problem.
Correct.
So you admitted here that it was a problem, correct?
Well, I don't know that it was a problem. I admitted that it was not sending those auto
Right,
responses
right.
anymore. It's a different auto response now,
Yes.
but
it's been
it is an
corrected,
audit.
basically.
It's an automatic response
Mhm.
because it concerned you that you didn't receive anything.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No,
Do you believe, Theo, that in all of these changes, it sounds like there's been a ton of different access issues, not want to say access issues, a ton of different, you've had to go in and gain control of a lot of different systems. In any of this, do you believe that anything that the public has requested or has anything fallen through the cracks? I guess is what I'm getting to. Is it your belief that anything has fallen through the cracks?
well, I think that's a great question.
That is a good question.
That is one reason to have taken the path we've taken, right? Because we were still able to receive the requests and provide the information to people who needed it.
Yeah.
That's the primary concern of the Board of Pardons and Parole, is that we're receiving the requests. They're not going into some black hole. We're receiving them and we're responding to them. And that has been the primary concern. I've wanted to make sure that there's no interruption to us providing the kind of customer service. And I trusted that any fact finder would understand the technological aspects of a placeholder continuing to exist on an app connected to a website.
And it's very intricate.